At some point, nobody can say exactly when, the fans of CNC equipment started noticing something was off. The channel was still running. Clinton was still showing up in the yard, dragging strange machines out of government auctions, talking specs with whoever was standing nearby. The content was still good, but there was a gap where something used to be. The woman who built the business alongside him, who sat for press interviews, who was named co-owner in every article written about CNC equipment, she'd gone quiet. No goodbye video, no announcement, no explanation of any kind, just absent. Most channels, when something like this happens, you get drama. You get a tearful update video, or a tweet that says more than it should, or a comment section that turns into a courtroom. None of that happened here. What happened instead was something quieter. Fans who'd watched long enough to notice, asking questions that nobody bothered to answer. And the longer those questions went unanswered, the more the story behind Bridgette Chitwood started to feel worth telling properly. So that's what this is. Not speculation dressed up as fact, just the actual story. Who she was, what she built, why her presence mattered, and what the record actually shows about where she went. The thing people get backwards about CNC equipment is that they think of it as a YouTube channel first. It wasn't. By the time the first video went up in October 2012, Clinton and Bridgette had already been running a legitimate heavy equipment business for 8 years. The channel came later, almost as an extension of what was already there, not the other way around. The business started in 2004. Construction equipment was the original focus. Clinton had grown up around this kind of work. He's from Monroe County, Indiana, and his family had farmed the same land for 7 generations. His father was in the excavating business, so heavy machinery wasn't something Clinton discovered as an adult. It was just part of how he grew up. By the time he started CNC equipment, he already had years of practical knowledge behind him. Bridgette came from a different direction entirely. She was raised in Lafayette, Indiana, about an hour northwest of where the business would eventually be based. She went to Purdue University, one of the better engineering schools in the country, and graduated with a degree in industrial engineering. That took her from 1997 to 2002. Industrial engineering, to be clear, isn't the same as mechanical engineering or trades work. It's the discipline of making complex operations run well, systems thinking, process optimization, figuring out how a business can scale without falling apart. Not a bad skill set to bring to a small equipment company trying to grow. The two of them met on a blind date arranged by family members. It's almost too perfect a detail for a channel about finding value in unexpected places, but that's genuinely how it happened. And whatever clicked between them, it held. They built a business together, raised 2 sons, and kept the whole thing running out of a yard in rural Indiana for over 2 decades. By 2008, 4 years into the operation, CNC equipment made a pivot that would end up defining the channel's identity. They started adding decommissioned military vehicles to the inventory. Surplus trucks, heavy-duty machines, the kind of equipment that gets auctioned off when the government has no more use for it. Clinton had the eye for which machines had potential. The shop had the capability to do something with them. The facility itself was more serious than most people probably imagined watching the early videos. Inside, there was a CNC machine cutting custom parts from 3/4-inch steel. The shop floor, which you'd expect to be a mess given the scale of what they were working on, was clean. Spare parts organized, scrap metal and used motor oil collected and recycled. The operation had a discipline to it that doesn't happen by accident. That discipline had Bridgette's background written all over it. The inventory grew into something genuinely unusual. At one point, they sold a 96,000-pound bulldozer, 30 feet long, over 12 feet tall, with a blade wider than 13 feet. Custom military truck conversions were going out the door for between $20,000 and $55,000 each. Clinton was doing builds that involved pulling out the original cargo bed, adding crew cab sections, dropping in suspension upgrades, sometimes adding rear steering. The customers were coming from all over the world. Only about 20% of the business was local to Indiana. For a small operation running out of a gravel yard in Brown County, that's a remarkable reach. And the business philosophy stayed simple throughout all of it. Keep it in-house, stay in control, don't grow so fast that the quality slips. Clinton said it plainly in an interview. We could make the business bigger, but we would lose some control. That's not the instinct of someone chasing scale for its own sake. That's someone who understood what made the thing worth running in the first place. When the YouTube channel launched in late 2012, it wasn't an overnight thing. Nothing in this niche ever is. Blue-collar channels grow by building trust with an audience that can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. You don't fake your way to credibility with people who know what a real equipment yard looks like, or what it sounds like when someone actually understands the machines they're working on. CNC Equipment built that trust the slow way, by just showing up and doing the work on camera. 2 videos a week, more or less, for years. Over 1,400 videos uploaded across the channel's run. The audience they found was loyal because the content was real. No manufactured drama between crew members, no fake auction finds staged for clicks. Just the actual business, playing out in front of a camera. There were moments that broke through to a wider audience. The spy truck is probably the best known. Clinton bought a Ford pickup at a government auction, routine enough for a business that sources vehicles this way regularly. When they opened it up, it was still loaded with surveillance equipment, computers, cameras, gear that clearly hadn't been properly cleared before the vehicle went to auction. Clinton put a video up showing what they'd found stuffed inside the camper shell. The government came to recover what was left. That story spread well outside the usual audience, and for good reason. It had everything you'd want from an unexpected find, plus the kind of real-world consequence that makes it feel like more than just a YouTube stunt. At its peak, the channel was pulling close to 2 million views a month. For a niche channel built around heavy equipment and military surplus, those are genuinely strong numbers. The audience wasn't there by accident. It had been built over years, video, by people who knew what they were doing. Through all of this, Bridgette was part of the public story. She wasn't hiding in the background. When local media covered CNC Equipment, and they did because the business was genuinely interesting, she was quoted. Articles described the operation as belonging to both of them. She talked about the community work they did, the donations to local organizations, the fire department, the sheriff's department. She helped run the annual Touch a Truck event every summer, a fundraiser where families could bring their kids to climb on the big equipment, with the money going to the Weekend Backpack Program, which provides food to students in need in Brown County. That community involvement was a consistent thread. Brown County had been good to the business, and the Chitwoods gave back to it. Bridgette described it plainly. She called it just being a good human, not a brand play, not a PR move, just the way she thought people should operate. Clinton's version of the same idea, you gotta be nice to everybody. 2 people who built something real and stayed grounded about it. So Bridgette wasn't some invisible back office figure that viewers constructed into a story after the fact. She was there, on the record, talking to journalists, participating in the community, identified consistently as co-owner. That's not a minor detail. It means her stepping back from visibility wasn't the disappearance of someone who was never really present to begin with. She was present. And then, at some point, she wasn't. There's no precise date you can point to. That's part of what makes this harder to track than a typical departure story. No farewell video, no pinned comment, no Patreon post from Clinton saying things were changing. What there is instead is a gradual shift in how the channel started describing itself and who was being named in it. At some point, descriptions of CNC Equipment started dropping Bridgette's name and picking up a different one. Kevin, a mechanic known for meticulous restoration work, the kind of guy who will spend 200 hours on a single machine just to get it right, became the second face of the channel. References to the operation shifted from Clinton and Bridgette to Clint and Kevin. Patreon posts from the channel were signed by Clinton alone. Again, no explanation, nothing from either side about what changed or why. The comment sections didn't explode. There was no mass fan backlash, no viral post demanding answers, just recurring questions from the people who'd been watching long enough to notice the difference. Where did Bridgette go? What happened? Is everything okay? Those questions didn't get answered publicly. They still haven't. Here's where the speculation usually takes over. Divorce rumors, business falling out, some kind of behind-the-scenes blow-up that somebody supposedly witnessed. None of that can be verified. None of it has been claimed by either Chitwood in any public forum. What can be verified is this. As of December 2024, Bridgette Chitwood is still the registered agent on CNC Equipment LLC's official state filings in Indiana. That's a matter of public record. It means whatever changed on camera, the business structure didn't collapse around it. She still has her name on the company, legally, formally, in documentation that gets updated and filed with the state. You don't stay registered agent on a business you've been pushed out of or cut away from. That's not how any of this works. So the dramatic version of events, a falling out that torched everything, a split that scattered the operation, is not supported by anything in the actual record. She stepped back from the camera. She didn't disappear from the company. The more likely explanation, when you look at the full picture, is also the less exciting one. Bridgette came up through engineering, not entertainment. Her professional background was always about the operational side of things, making the business run correctly, handling the structure and the systems. Clinton was the one who had the natural instinct for being on camera. He's the one who talked to the machines like they were old friends, who cracked jokes with the guys in the yard, who had the personality that built a channel audience over a decade of consistent uploads. That's not a criticism of Bridgette, it's just an honest read of who was suited to what. It's entirely possible that the most accurate version of this story is simply that she decided to stop being the public half of a public business. That the camera-facing side of CNC equipment was never really hers to begin with, and at some point it made more sense to step back and let Clinton run that part of it the way he'd always been running it anyway. No war, no wreckage, just a shift in roles that didn't come with a press release. The practical answer is not much. CNC equipment is still posting, the yard is still running. Kevin is a capable mechanic and a decent on-camera presence, and the content hasn't collapsed without Bridgette visible in it. The channel still does what it always did, finds unusual machines, fixes them, sells them, documents the whole thing. But the feel changed, and that matters even if it's hard to quantify. The CNC equipment that people found in the early years of the channel was a family operation, two people who'd built something together from nothing, raising kids inside the business, staying in a small Indiana community when they could have scaled into something bigger and chose not to. That story had a texture to it that's harder to find now. Kevin is good at what he does, but he's not part of that original founding narrative. The channel now looks more like a lot of other channels in this space. A guy and his crew working on machines, which is fine, but it's different. What Bridgette represented wasn't just a second person on camera. She was proof that the business had real structure behind it. The engineering background, the operational discipline, the community roots, the insistence on keeping quality high instead of chasing growth, all of that was as much hers as Clinton's. The channel was the surface. The business underneath it was built by both of them.